Good day, Ma'am Biore. My name is Annielou PENECITOS and I am going to present the assignment number 1, which is all about economics. Economics comes from the ancient Greek word oikonomikos or oikonomia. Oikonomikos literally translates to the task of managing a household. French mercantilists used economic politique or political economy as a term for matters related to public administration. Adam Smith was a Scottish philosopher widely considered as the first modern economist. Smith defined economics as an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. The wealth-centric definition of economics limited its scope as a subject and was seen as narrow and inaccurate. Smith's definition forced the subject to ignore all non-wealth aspects of human existence. The Smithian definition overemphasized the material aspects of well-being and ignored the non-material aspects. It was assumed that human beings acted as rational economic agents who mindlessly strived to maximize their own well-being. The Smithian definition prevents the subject from exploring the concepts of resource scarcity. The allocation and use of scarce resources are seen as the central topic of analysis in modern economics. Branches of economics includes: first is classical economics. Classical economics is often considered the foundation of modern economics. It was developed by Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Jean-Baptiste Say. Classical economics is based on operation of free markets, how the invisible hand and market mechanism can enable an efficient allocation of resources. The second is neoclassical economics. Neoclassical economics is often considered to be orthodox economics. It is the economics taught in most textbooks as the starting point for economics teaching. The tools of neoclassical economics, supply and demand, rational choice, utility maximization, can be used in new fields and also for critics. Third is Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics was developed in the 1930s against a backdrop of the Great Depression. The existing economic orthodoxy was at a loss to explain the persistent economic depression and mass unemployment. Keynes suggested that markets failed to clear for many reasons. Therefore, Keynes advocated government intervention to kickstart the economy. Fourth is the monetarist economics. Monetarism was partly a reaction to the dominance of Keynesian economics in the post-war period. Monetarists led by Milton Friedman argued that Keynesian fiscal policy was much less effective than Keynesian suggested. Monetarists promoted previous classical ideals such as belief in the efficiency of markets. They also placed emphasis on the control of the money supply as a way to control inflation. The fifth is Austrian economics. This is another school of economics that was critical of state intervention, price controls. It is broadly free market. However, it has criticized elements of classical school, placing greater emphasis on the individual value and action of an individual. For example, Austrian economists argue the value of a good reflects the marginal utility of the good rather than the labor inputs. Sixth is the Marxist economics. Emphasizes unequal and unstable nature of capitalism, seeks a radically different approach to basic economic questions. Rather than relying on free market, advocates state intervention in ownership, planning, and distribution of resources. Seventh is neoliberalism or neoclassical, a modern interpretation of classical economics, considerable overlap with monetarism, essentially concerned with the promotion of free markets, competition, free trade, privatization, lower government involvement, but some minimal state intervention in public services like health and education. Few identify as neoliberal, sometimes used as a term of abuse. Now is the 10 basic principles of economics. First is people face trade-offs. Trade-off involved with giving up one aspect or quantity for something in return of aspects and quantity. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Making decisions requires trading one goal for another. Second is the cost of something is what you give up to get it. Because people face trade-offs, making decisions requires comparing the cost and benefits of alternative causes of action. Third is rational people think at the margin. When a firm wants to make the economic decisions of hiring an additional labor, the firm accesses the additional output the new labor will add to the total output. Hiring only takes place when the marginal product of the labor is greater than or equal to the marginal cost of the labor. Same for when a consumer decides to consume an additional unit of commodity. Fourth is people respond to incentives. Incentive is something that induces a person to act by offering rewards or punishment to people who change their behavior. Fifth is trade can make everyone better. Trade is not like a sport competition, where one side gains and the other side loses. Consider trade that takes place inside your home. Your family is likely to be involved in trade with other families on a daily basis. Most families do not build their own homes, make their own clothes, or grow their own food. Sixth is markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. Many countries that once had centrally planned economies have abandoned this system and are trying to develop market economies. Seventh is government can sometimes improve market outcomes. There are two broad reasons for the government to interfere with the economy. First, the promotion of efficiency and equity. Government policy can be most useful when there is market failure. Market failure is a situation in which a market left on its own fails to allocate resources efficiently. 8 is a country's standard of living depends on country production. Differences in the standard of living from one country to another are quite large. Changes in living standards over time are also quite large. 9th is increase in money supply caused the prices to rise inflation. Sustained increase in the overall level of prices in the economy. When the government creates a large amount of money, the value of money falls. 10th is society faces a short-run trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Most economists believe that the short-run effect of a monetary injection is lower unemployment and higher prices. An increase in the amount of money in the economy stimulates spending and increases the demand of goods and services in the economy. John Maynard Keynes is the founding father of macroeconomics. Although some of the notions of modern macroeconomics are rooted in the work of scholars such as Irving Fisher and Nat Wicksell in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, macroeconomics as a distinct discipline began with Keynes' masterpiece, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936. Its main concern is the instability of aggregate variables, whereas early economics concentrated on equilibrium in individual markets. Keynes introduced the simultaneous consideration of equilibrium in three unrelated markets for goods, labor, and finance. Macroeconomics refers to the study of an economy, usually a nation's economy as a whole. Nations have economic goals like equity and efficiency. In macroeconomics, three of these goals receive extra focus: economic growth, price stability, and full employment. Economic growth refers to a nation's ability to produce more goods and services over time. It is generally measured through some version of gross domestic product. Price stability refers to minimizing changes in a nation's price over time. This is generally measured with the price index. While full employment refers to the degree to which all willing and able workers can find jobs. This is generally measured through the unemployment rate. The circular flow model demonstrates how money moves from producers to households and back again in an endless loop. In an economy, money moves from producers to workers as wages and then back from workers to producers as workers spend money on products and services. The models can be made more complex to include additions to the money supply like exports and leakages from money supply like imports. When all of these factors are totaled, the result is a nation's gross domestic product or GDP or the national income. Analyzing the circular flow model and its current impact on GDP can help governments and central banks adjust monetary and fiscal policy to improve an economy. The law of supply and demand, as I understand it, is a basic economic principle that determines how prices are set in a market. It revolves around the relationship between the quantity of a good that producers are willing to sell and the quantity that consumers are willing to buy at different price levels. Generally, when prices go up, producers supply more, while consumers buy less. And when prices go down, producers supply less and consumers buy more. The market reaches a balance or equilibrium where the quantity supplied matches the quantity demanded, setting the market price. I also recognize that shifts in either supply or demand can disrupt this equilibrium. For instance, if production costs drop, the supply might increase, lowering prices. On the demand side, a change in consumer preferences could increase demand, raising prices. The degree to which supply and demand respond to price changes is known as elasticity, and it varies depending on the good or services. This concept is central to understanding how markets function and how prices are determined.